Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 14 of Your Favorite Movies. Today, I'm joined by David of Flix Talk. And David, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to talk about Reservoir Dogs.
Yes, the movie we're going to be talking about today is Quentin Tarantino's directorial debut, Reservoir Dogs, is a movie that I absolutely love. It was the first Tarantino movie I saw. But do you remember the first time you saw it?
Yeah, it wasn't the first Tarantino movie that I did see. So if I can like give a little history lesson of just kind of like my
Yep.
movie watching for it. I think the first movie I was introduced to for Quentin Tarantino was From Dusk Till Dawn with Robert Rodriguez. Did you remember that one?
I still haven't seen it, but yeah.
Oh, you got to check that one out. So, I was a huge horror fan. I still am, but like especially like in the mid '90s. So for whatever reason, I just caught that one, and I was like, this guy is kind of like eccentric. I know his character is supposed to be like
Yeah.
that, but then I found out that he was like a director as well and a writer, screenplay and whatnot. So that's when I kind of started going in his back catalog. But it wasn't till later after I'd seen Kill Bill because I was still in, I think, coming off of high school when it was early 2000s 2003, I believe, when I saw the trailer and I was like, oh my God. And I kept seeing this name, the fourth film by Quentin Tarantino or whatever, So I was like, oh my God. So before I had seen Kill Bill, I went back, after seeing the trailer to go back and watch Pulp Fiction and then eventually see Reservoir Dogs. So Reservoir Dogs was probably like the third or yeah, about third movie I had seen from Quentin Tarantino officially. But it's very interesting, and we had talked about off camera, like we rewatch this one all the time. It's like quotable.
Yeah.
And I just realized like this is probably his shortest movie. I want to say it's like an hour and
I'm pretty
39,
sure.
hour
Yeah,
40
it's really short.
compared to the other ones, compared to the others. Yeah,
Yeah, I totally
yeah.
agree. Like when I first saw this, I'm gonna say probably 2018. That sounds right. And it was the first Tarantino movie I saw. I probably could find the DVD somewhere. I now have every Tarantino movie. I have like this box that has them all up to Django Unchained, and then I have the Hateful Eight separately. And then as I told you off camera, like the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like it's like that flip out section. I'm pretty sure I still have a video up on. If I
With
do,
the
I'll link it
vinyl,
above.
with the
Yeah,
vinyl and
like
all that.
the vinyl and the poster. Actually, the one poster is it might not be, yeah, no, it's not going to be in frame, but it's one of the Rick Dalton ones. But
And I was telling
the
you, I was moving things around because I have a Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction up here too. It's just like
yeah.
it's there's something about those movies, man. It's just I don't know. And we were talking also off camera saying that like I can't wait for this to add to like the 4K collection. It's gonna happen. It has
Yes.
to.
It has to. I remember when there were rumors of Pulp Fiction coming to 4K in 2019, and it's like here we are a year and a half later, and it's still like it was supposed to be like December, and I was like, damn, like
Oh
it's
my
it's
gosh.
still not here, but they definitely will soon. Like they have to. They're some of the most iconic movies ever, and when I first saw it, this was like one of the films, maybe like a few months after I really got into film, and I
Yeah.
was just blown away. I think that still today it has one of the best scripts ever, and I think it
Yep.
was one of the first films I like saw that I noticed there was someone, writing the dialogue, and I was like this is so smart the way that this connects to this, and because it is told in a out of order way as Tarantino does, and we get kind
Right.
of flashes through, and I just love it. And it's a heist movie, but we see, I don't know, like a few minutes of the heist. It's really nothing. You just see them like trucking it along the side of the road, and
Yeah.
that's really it.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, I don't know. I wanted to preface this by saying that I don't know if you're aware that this was actually there's a huge debate on if this script or a lot of these scenes were lifted from a Hong Kong movie called, I believe, City on Fire. Did you look into that
Yes,
at all?
I've heard about that, like the
Yeah.
ending showdown and all that.
Well, it's more than that. It's like there's like five different scenes that are very parallel, and that's fine. If he did that, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But it's to me, I didn't know that at the time. So to me, this was kind of just his interpretation, I guess. And I think they've interviewed him on that. So because I only preface that because I know people are gonna be like, oh, Reservoir Dogs, they stole it from another movie, blah blah blah. I still think it's paying homage and the storytelling. I haven't seen that other film, but I've seen clips of it where they do the comparison. And yes,
Yeah.
they are very spot on and whatnot. And some of the situations, can we talk spoilers on here, by the way?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, like with the Tim Roth character of Mr. Orange, being the undercover cop and whatnot, that's still prevalent in the original City on Fire movie. And yet it's kind of like it's not a common theme, but it's not super far-fetched to be like, this is only like only one person can create a movie like this. Like
Yeah.
this, it's a very common scenario. I mean, they have undercover cops all the time, right?
Yeah.
But going off of what you said, the dialogue on this is such common dialogue. I don't remember ever seeing an early 90s movie, let alone too many movies in that time or even before that, that were really just people just shooting the shit, quote
Yeah.
unquote, just talking. Like we get introduced to the whole gang, at the diner scene, the five, and the guys in the black suits, and it's just such a great introduction. The intro of that movie before we see the title card, it's just
Yeah.
like, but at the same time, I know it's not going to be for everybody. That's the
Oh yeah.
thing.
Yeah, 100%. Like it has its audience, and I'm glad that it's found it. A lot of people have heard Tarantino movies, like, the film bros love it, and I have been called film bro multiple times. I don't really care because I'm like, yeah,
What does
these
that
are
mean? I
some of
don't
my
know what that.
it's like the ones that love like the super male dominated movies. So,
Oh,
Pulp Fiction, Fight Club, Seven, like all these
uh,
movies, which again are like some
oh,
of my
good,
basically
good
all the
movies.
ones sitting behind
Basically, good movie.
all the
Yeah,
great movies that have like I
gotcha.
guess like a strong male lead and all that,
Oh,
which I'm like okay, whatever. I don't really care, but like
you have aliens right there on the back too, so that's a
true,
female.
true. Yeah, I got Alien and Alien, so I don't
Gotcha,
know if that won't be in frame, but I do have them behind me here. But
gotcha.
like, yeah, and in the movie, like it opens with, I mean, Tarantino talking about like a virgin, and it's so like I think that scene I remember. I just go back and I remember analyzing it just like on my own, not even for videos, but like even back in 2018, 2019, like just
Yeah,
going and like listening and like reading along with the script, just because this movie like means a lot to me because it really inspired me. And I remember like going back and just being like, how was this, like when you think of it, how does it feel so smooth? And the way that Steve Buscemi and Harvey Keitel, like the way that they communicate seems
yeah.
pretty intense, but it always works, and it never feels like they're reading lines off of a script, which I think is a massive compliment to any screenwriter.
Yeah, exactly. It seems very, very improvised, very just fluid and natural. And when you become a fan of this movie or the Quentin verse, where it's like you start watching the behind the scenes and the making of, or just like reading little tidbits here and there and
Yep.
stuff like that, and finding out that this movie almost didn't get made because of the financing issues of,
Yes.
wanting to get, and that's the thing too, is that he wanted to get a lot of these actors, but he just couldn't afford them. More notably, Harvey Keitel, who was huge in the 70s, 80s, and
70s. Yep.
then yeah, 90s, and still to this day, he's still doing like small films here and there and whatnot. Which I think Mr. White is one of the most powerful characters on screen. I like
Oh
all of
yeah.
them, but I love Mr. White's performance. It's just there's something about Harvey Keitel's presence and being that character that just seems very natural. It doesn't sound like an accent that he's putting on. Where to me, Tim Roth, I know Tim Roth, I believe he's British. I don't think, I
I
think he has
think
a,
he seems like he is.
yeah, I believe he is actually British. So whenever he puts on an accent, like in, I don't know if you ever saw Four Rooms, which is
I
another,
haven't. No.
I think it's not a directed by Quentin Tarantino, but it is, I believe, written or screenplay, but don't quote me on that. But Quentin Tarantino is actually in that film, and Tim Roth is the lead. And another one, he plays a bellhop, kind of a quirky movie, but when he puts on an accent, it's an accent, and it gets a little. To me, the Tim Roth, Mr. Orange character, the accent gets a little annoying at times. Like it sounds like it's supposed to be like from like a New York accent or back east, I guess,
Yeah.
accent, but it just comes off a little bit too annoying, especially like when he's dying on the ground and whatnot and screaming. But Harvey Keitel, absolutely love him. Seems improvised, and this is a screen that this is a screenplay that I think that they had fun with.
Oh yeah.
All the characters
100%.
evolved. Yeah, especially Steve Buscemi, man. Also another great character, man. It's just like, and he's the one that makes it out, right? At least we think he makes it out, because I don't. So many times I've rewatched that ending where it sounds like there's police in the background having a shootout with him. Like
Yes.
when he leaves the warehouse, it almost alludes to like. And Tarantino has this really wild style of, kind of letting your imagination run wild, whether it's a Pulp Fiction, like open the briefcase type of
Yeah.
thing, but just letting your imagination run wild. And I love that about him. And I guess I can understand the film bro stuff, because it is like, everybody likes Tarantino because he's so edgy and cool and he's breaking
Yeah.
the mold and stuff like that. And when you watch some of his interviews, he may come off as cocky. I think there might be going on a little more, like the gears are moving and stuff like that, to like, I don't know, maybe he has like some social like things going on with him, but he just seems like someone that's very, very passionate about film.
Oh,
And
100%.
yeah, sometimes that just comes across in interviews as, I guess, odd. to most people, to the majority, it's like, whoa, dude, like you're talking like way
Yeah,
too
because
much
he
about
he
something. But
talks really fast, and as somebody
yeah,
read a comment that said he always looks like he's on the right amount of cocaine, which I think is hilarious. It's hilarious, but like I love watching his interviews because he is so passionate and
very
like just
passionate.
he talks so fast and just like I always get shit for like talking with my hands in videos. Just that's just because people
Yeah,
told me when I first started doing videos that they were very boring, as I'm going like this right now, because I just would sit there like this. So I
yeah.
kind of get it, like when he does. Like I mean, he's probably my favorite director. I have a written and directed by Quentin Tarantino hoodie on. I just won't put it on because it's super hot in my room.
Yeah, I'm jealous, man. I don't even have that. This is all I got right here.
Still sick. Still
Yeah,
sick.
thanks, man. But yeah, no, I absolutely love the movie and the dialogue and everything.
Oh yeah, and like talking about Steve Buscemi, this guy just he's slowly become one of my favorite actors. Just Steve Buscemi supremacy, I think. Honestly, this guy is so awesome. I just see him in more and more. You know, like I saw him in like I kind of grew up with him as the kind of Adam Sandler friend that he shows
Yeah.
up because I first saw him in Grown Ups. Or like yeah, like Grown Ups and Billy Madison. Although his role in Billy Madison is hilarious,
Oh yeah.
and in Grown Ups too. Like no matter what you think of the movie, I think his role is pretty funny as Wiley. But then as I'm kind of getting older, I see him in The Big Lebowski. I saw him in
Yeah.
this. I saw him in this year. I just reacted to Fargo, and I'm just like, this
Yeah.
guy is really like he's a fantastic actor. And I don't know if I could say what my favorite performance by him is, but I know that
Mm.
this one is at least one of them. And his character here, like I mean, a bunch of the characters, but his one, it's just one of my favorite of Tarantino's overall. I just find him so interesting, and I also love the connection between this and Pulp Fiction, where we
Yeah.
have the Vegas, like we have
Yeah.
Vincent Vega.
And Vic Vega. Yeah, Victor
Yeah,
Vega. Yeah,
I,
that was always a cool little little Easter egg, I guess. Well, not really Easter egg because they do say the name, but I mean you have to kind of connect the dots
yeah,
of that. And then, once you kind of find out, I mean, we talked about also off air kind of like, the whole podcast that just happened with Quentin Tarantino and Joe Rogan, and he kind of, alluded to a lot of things that were going on behind the scenes, the future of Tarantino pretty much, what we could be getting as his 10th film.
yeah.
And it's just like so much like excitement for this guy. But I think, it came down to why are you retiring? Like you're technically as a director, like he's young. What is it, like 57, 58, something like
He's in
that? I
his
want to say
50s. I know that.
yeah, and I mean, as we see, I mean, just kind of keeping up with movie news and whatnot, actors that have been in, their careers for 10, 20 years are starting to jump behind the camera. They know that in their
Yeah,
40s, 50s, like now is the time.
like
I
Ben Affleck.
exactly
That's the
Ben
first one
Affleck,
that comes to mind.
Michael B. Jordan as well.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah. There's a couple that I've seen that are really trying to jump behind the camera, and I know I'm kind of going off track because you're talking about
that's
Steve
okay.
Buscemi. I was gonna say, but with Steve Buscemi, it's I don't want to sound mean or anything like that, but there's sometimes they get lumped into a group of actors that don't physically look like A-list celebrities, like a Brad Pitt, like a Ben Affleck.
Yeah,
You know what I
like
mean?
yeah,
But their acting just kind of breaks through that mold and you see something else there. And he's a perfect example. I'm trying to think of other examples of people that are like, I guess, that aren't Hollywood sexy, I guess.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean?
And even with that, there's a line in Fargo where I think it might be Francis McDormand. One of them says, "Oh yeah, he was with a funny looking fella." Like they kind of like. I'm not trying to be. I mean, of course, I love Steve Buscemi. I think he's, as I said, slowly becoming one of my favorite actors. But I definitely get what you're saying. Like you don't, he isn't on the cover of every magazine with his shirt off and everything, which is like good. That really proves that this guy knows how to act and he isn't some pretty face. Like he isn't some fucking or what's his name, Noah Santiago or whatever that guy's name is,
Oh yeah,
that's in all
yeah.
the Netflix movies. He isn't someone like that, which I really appreciate about his performance.
That's almost like a cheat code to kind of get in front of the camera and get booked for roles or whatever gigs based off your looks. Like that's because that becomes first, and then acting becomes
Yep.
secondary when it comes to those actors. Whereas a Steve Buscemi would, acting would auditions or whatever, you have to kind of wow the people that you're auditioning for,
Yes.
as opposed to whoever at the top of the sexy chain. I don't know. Man of the year. I'll just say man of the year. It's always like remember when George Clooney was always like man of the year on the
Yeah.
covers and stuff like that? I think like last year was Michael B. Jordan. And you always see him
Yeah.
like on the front covers of like People magazine, sexiest, man alive or
Sexist
whatever.
Man of the Year. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just interesting how they kind of do that. But it is cool when you do see a combination of that. But it is also great to see, someone that puts acting, holds acting to a higher standard, I guess.
Yeah, and that's what I really appreciate about Tarantino as well, is because he takes people who are very, very well-known actors. Like he was very much pushing for Harvey Keitel. He was pushing for De Niro and Jackie Brown. And I heard some stuff about them like not getting along on set, which I don't know if that's true, but like, how much he talks about Taxi Driver, and then it's cool that he knows who he wants for the role, and then he like pushes for it and everything. I find that really interesting. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, the role of Jules in Pulp Fiction was written for Samuel L. Jackson. I'm not sure. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think it was. And there's just, I'm not saying that he doesn't have attractive people in the movie. I mean, Margot Robbie was in Once Upon a Time in
Oh
Hollywood,
God,
but
yeah,
that again,
yeah.
that's a whole other topic. But is there
Yeah.
like one scene that you just think is like the best scene in the movie, or at least like the one that is most important to you?
Oh man, there's a lot of scenes that are important for their own reason. I mean, starting out not with the opening scene, but there's the explanation scene where they all first kind of meet. Well, the first three, Orange, White, and Mr. Pink, they all meet, first at the warehouse after everything went down. Everything went sideways. Shit hit the fan pretty much.
Yeah.
And White and Mr. Pink are talking about, what had happened. How Mr. Orange got shot in the stomach, and he's talking about how he has to get him a doctor, and Steve Buscemi's really the only one not reacting off emotion. He's like, I'm very sorry for that, but we need to get the hell out of here,
Yes.
type of thing. And he's explaining to him how this guy can't be the rat. He took a bullet for me. Like they're showing compassion, and these are supposed to be hardened criminals.
Yep.
Granted, they've worked a lot of jobs with people, but it shows that they're not callous, that they are human. There is human elements to these quote unquote thugs. Even Michael Madsen's character, Mr. Blonde, they call him the psychopath of the group,
Yeah.
and even though he does act more of like the cool, suave guy in the group when he's around the guys, when we first get introduced to him, with to Joe and what do they call him, Fast Eddie or something, or
Yes.
yeah, I
I
think his
think it's
name's
fast.
Eddie or Fast Eddie. Yeah, there's like a bro like wrestling match that goes on. Like
Yes.
it seems like they really care for each other because he didn't open his mouth. He did time for them, so they respect the loyalty to those characters. So there are still human elements and small little scenes that kind of engulf that, and I do really appreciate those. The more crazier scenes, obviously, to me, the one that stands out is Steve Buscemi's character, Mr. Pink, having the shootout with the cops. When I
Oh
first saw
yeah.
that, dude, it is so brutal. I told you I live out here in California, right by LA, and they filmed this whole movie in LA, and it's just like there's something about a crime movie like set in LA, like the grit, the street, like, and
Yeah.
maybe I'm just more biased because I live out here, but just kind of seeing recognizable streets. But that when he just kind of just starts shooting, he pulls the
Yeah.
woman out of the door,
Exactly. That's what I was just thinking of.
out of the window, and then just starts unloading like a whole clip on these cops, and he tags a couple of them, and it just seemed raw and real and brutal. It seemed like we were like actually running like the show Cops. You remember the old show Cops where they used
Yes.
to run with the camera crew? It looked like we were actually
I
watching like
I
a
think that they're
scene.
still going on with that. There's like live PD, and it's so
Yeah.
fun to watch. It's so fun to watch.
It seemed like we were watching an episode, especially when he's running away from the cops and he like bumps into like a pedestrian, and then the guy, he's like,
Yeah.
mother, he's like, fuck her, and he's like keeps running.
Yeah.
It seems very like in real time. That's what I love about Quentin Tarantino's film style. There's a lot of, at least in the beginning, there was a lot of guerrilla style filmmaking because they didn't have that much money. I mean, this movie was like a million and a half or something like
Yes.
that for budget, and that's still very, very low, even for the early 90s. So most of these shots, I'm sure you only had in one take or a couple of takes. I mean,
Yes.
let alone you're blocking off streets. That all costs, everything costs money, and
Yeah.
it's just incredible the performances that they all put on because once again, this movie's not going to be for everybody, but for me, like every minute of this movie was very, very entertaining. And I think it goes back to the writing of you're just kind of getting a day in the life of these I don't want to say normal guys because they're not doing normal things, but the
Normal
normal band,
criminals.
yeah, normal criminals and the banter that goes along with it.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it so fascinating is because we are really like put into the life of them, and because we do go back into and see, as you said, more of them all kind of together and their connections with each other. I find that really interesting, and there's just so much with this movie that I also think there's some very intense moments, like you mentioned, that chase sequence, which I think is easily one of the best. For me, it would probably be when like Mr. White and Mr. Ping are kind of talking, and then they do one of that iconic shot of them pointing the guns.
Oh yeah.
Mr. Pink's on the ground pointing up, and then Mr. White's pointing down. I love that. And then we have, I think, the most iconic scene in the movie, which is the stuck in the middle with you, where Mr. Blonde cuts up the guy's ear as he's dancing around and starts like
Yeah,
torturing.
yeah.
Which like it's brutal in a way, yet you're just like, I should not be entertained by this, but I'm having such a fun time.
So I have a question. Did you listen to the podcast at all? The Joe
I
Rogan one, or
haven't.
did you
I've
get to
just
that
seen the
part?
clips. I think just the
Okay.
clips that you posted.
Okay. Yeah, definitely see if you can listen to it on Spotify. They have the full, you can watch it on there as well. But there's a chunk where Joe Rogan asked him, he says that scene in particular seemed like it would be too brutal for that time, at least in like 1991, 1992 when this film came out. Was there any like blowback from the production company that put this out, or did they tell you anything? And he says, Quentin Tarantino says that he really stood by his guns to have that scene in. Yet when you see it, it pans off to the left.
Yes.
So I think there was like probably some back and forth with him and the people that put it out, because I know he was working with the Weinstein Company and stuff like that. They pretty much financed like 90%.
Yeah.
I don't know if they financed this last one. I know, and he does
I
talk about,
highly doubt it.
yeah,
With well, because Brad Pitt threatened to kill Harvey Weinstein, so I don't think they would put him in
oh,
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I don't know if you heard about that, but he said he would kill him if he
oh,
saw
I
him.
didn't hear about that. Yeah, so that might have been like right. They were probably filming as the whole court case stuff was going on, but I know like all of his films before that, and he does talk about that and some of the things that he kind of knew about behind the scenes, I guess. But I'll let you watch it. But it's just really interesting that he talks about really defending his craft. But at the same time, you have to kind of come to a compromise. And I think us kind of panning to the left
Yeah.
was that compromise, because when you kind of see him jump on him and you start to see him kind of almost carve,
Yeah.
I still get like, ugh, because you just picture it being done to yourself, like someone ripping at your
Oh.
ear. And it's like that was kind of the cool artistic style to kind of pan away and not show it and then cut back, because once again, it leaves it up to your imagination. I mean,
That's what I love.
how many movies do we see like Saw, Hostel, like all these things that don't leave it up to your imagination, where you literally get to see every gruesome detail, and it's kind of, we're already what's the word, where we're not feeling anything anymore because we've already seen it all.
We
Like
know exactly what happened.
yeah, we're all saturated with this horror and gore and stuff like that, which it's fine. To me, it's fine and stuff like that. But we become. I'm just kind of going as I get older. I'm a lot older than you. I already know, but
Yeah.
I just appreciated that stuff way back because it was more about the shock value. But as I get older, I'm starting to appreciate going back and watching these films and seeing the techniques that they used to use.
Yeah, I agree. And I like that he leaves a lot of it up to our interpretation. And because, they get some crazy fan theories and he like refuses to answer them and all that. Like people always ask what's in the
Yeah, that's
briefcase.
so
And
cool.
his answer is like, I don't know, what do you think's in it? And I just
Yeah,
love that about him. I've been seeing more clips recently. I think it has to do with the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood like book being released, which I've heard is very good, where like
yeah.
he meets fans and he like signs their foot and they get a tattoo, which I think
I
is
saw
really
that clip.
funny.
Yeah,
Yeah, or like I think it was the one that I don't know if you posted it. Somebody posted it where it's like the You're So Cool from True Romance, which is a super good movie. One of my favorite movies, honestly. And
yep,
like he even used the wrong your, but they still got a tattoo right away just because it was like he wrote it so fast, so it made it really special. And
that's
just to
funny.
wrap things up, do you have a favorite character? If so, like who is it? Which one?
A favorite character in the bunch of Reservoir Dogs. Let's see, because the performances themselves they're all just, and it's so interesting because I know we don't get to see what happens to Mr. Blue. They say he dies. That was an
Yep.
actor I really didn't know too much about, to be honest. So when they showed him and they talked about killing him off screen, I wasn't really invested. So I was like, oh, okay. And then Quentin dies,
Yep.
which is always funny to see that he's always in his
Yeah, he's
movies
got
for
the
the most part.
nosebleed.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then like, but as far as like overall favorite characters, I think it still goes to, oh man, it's tough. It is tough.
Yeah.
It is very tough. I'm gonna say Harvey Keitel is Mr. White still. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I,
Yeah.
I, I think I gotta go with Mr. Pink just because I remember when I first watched it, I was like, this performance is amazing. I always felt the most interested in his character, but I
Yeah.
gotta say, Mr. White, Harvey Keitel, fantastic. I mean, the performances are all good, but like, it's really hard, as you said, to pick a favorite one. But I'm just going with what my gut says. Like, when somebody were to say, like, what is your favorite character from Reservoir Dogs, the first one that comes to my mind is Mr. Pink. And David, I have
Yeah.
to thank you for coming on here. It was a
Oh, of
lot of
course.
fun talking about this movie. Again, I always love to talk Quentin Tarantino. He's probably my favorite director, and this movie means a lot to me. And if you're watching, go subscribe to David for a ton of content, especially reactions. And I probably say you're my number one source for any movie news on Instagram. Like I bet that
Thanks.
your posts go on my stories more than anybody else, just because there's so much that you cover. It's great.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
And is there anything else about the movie or anything in general you want to say?
No, it's a great movie. I would say if you guys have no clue about, Quentin Tarantino whatsoever, if you guys are kind of interested in jumping into his catalog, definitely start with, I know he's done, more works and, True Romance and other, screenplay or even the Robert Rodriguez stuff that he's been involved with. I would definitely say start with Reservoir Dogs. It's a
Yeah.
great, I would say it's a great introduction to kind of what's to come, especially the follow-up with Pulp Fiction, which I'm going to
Yes.
say is probably my favorite out of all the movies, even though I hold all of his movies to a great,
Yeah.
great high standard. Even the ones that people overlook, like Jackie Brown or Death Proof, I really do enjoy those movies for what they are. And Quentin definitely has an eye, and it's the Quentin sphere. I mean, you could definitely tell his style for sure. But
Oh yeah,
yeah,
I
thank you so
think
much for having me.
it was great talking to you. I hope we get to make more videos soon. And everyone watching, tell us your favorite Quentin Tarantino movie or rank them all, anything like that. And how excited are you for his 10th one whenever we get that? And thank you all for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Over and out.